Hello and welcome to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. In this segment, James and I discuss one of those ambitions, which is that we fund our creative work through selling our creative work. Hope you enjoy. Hey James.
Yes, Pat.
Do you mind? I'm in the vault right now. Could you?
The vault.
Yeah, I'm just counting. Somebody bought us a coffee, 2 coffees actually.
Okay.
One of our listeners, $5 a coffee. So I'm just counting that money out, and I want to talk. I hope you don't mind.
You've not converted that into Cougarans yet? I thought that was our financial goal. Was no cash assets, all gold.
Cougarans are gold? I didn't realize that. Okay.
That's what I thought.
I bought crypto. Sorry.
Oh shit. What the hell are you doing in the vault then?
Nothing. Don't come in. Russell.
Yeah. Watch out, that door slips shut. Slightest wind and you're stuck.
Yeah.
So anyway, usually we do a segment after that.
I kind of lost interest. I'm staring at my ceiling now.
Or are you just stressed that all of our financial resources are in crypto now?
Okay, listen. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about money. How much so creatives and money, gigantic sinkhole of varying, attitudes, dysfunctions, functions, capitalists, sort of non-capitalists, ethical capitalists, non-ethical capitalists. I don't know. What's the ethic? Are there even any ethics?
Socialists.
Sorry, what?
Airsats, socialists.
Airsats. What?
Yeah. There's a lot of them floating around the US right now.
You're losing me. Let's skate away from politics and back to money.
Yeah, let's keep far away.
Yeah.
From, but throw it out there that yes, James is a big believer in social justice. That's the point.
And so is Pat. Don't get me wrong.
And so is Pat. No, I just figure everybody assumes.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Yeah.
Only the best things.
Right?
Yeah.
Aw. Sweet. Aw. Yeah. So money. I was adding up my income from this from 2025. Yep. Wasn't the tank that 2024 was? Wasn't the sinkhole? But it still wasn't that great. It wasn't as good as 2023. And then we started talking about this idea you had back in February this year, which was the concept of money as a motivator, or money as a centering motivator for somebody's creative work.
Right. So the question is, how much should money play a role in decision making and in the creative work that you do? Right. Mm-hmm. So which is pretty broad when you think about it. So, and we've covered stuff around like, should you produce creative work to a market?
Right.
Or should you just be completely free and create what you want and, all that kind of stuff? And I think we've pretty solidly landed on create what you feel, but you have to then have a sense of how am I going to get this out to the world, and, where's the audience for it, and, and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the piece of this that I really come down to is how much should money be a motivator for what you're doing? And whenever I think about that, I always have to go back to early in my career. And I know I've talked about this, but it's pertinent in that I didn't have a bank account where I could go out and explore and experiment and do my writing and have attitudes where, I can't do this paid work because I'm focusing on this, that, or the other thing. I had, wife, kid, I had people I had to support. I had to find a way to be a writer that makes money. Mm-hmm. And so for me, anything that I did, if I could not tie it objectively to increasing or creating an income stream, then I couldn't do it. I could not afford to do it. I did not have the privilege to do that.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why I started with journalism,
Hmm.
because it comes with a paycheck, it comes with health insurance, it comes with all these kinds of things that you need just to support yourself and others.
Hmm.
And money was the motivator, one of the motivators. I don't want to say exclusively because I had a lot of other reasons for doing that, but money was a big motivator of that. And
Hmm.
then finding my way into ghostwriting, well, money was a huge motivator for getting me out of journalism because I wasn't making enough money and I didn't see a pathway forward to get
Yeah.
where I wanted to go. And so money became part of the motivator to become a ghostwriter. And as I started to develop my practice and business of being a ghostwriter, it was the exact same thing. Where if it did not lead to a paycheck, either directly or in a way that I could see indirectly, this is going to go somewhere, I didn't have the privilege to do it because I
Hmm.
had to earn an income.
Yeah.
And so for me, money was a huge motivator, and it was a way that I judged what I was going to do next and
Hmm.
how I strategized building that career and developing that ghostwriting career.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
um, yeah. So going forward now at a mid level, how true is that? And I wonder for you, how did you start that way? Is it how does money figure in your decision making?
Money figures into my decision making centrally. It is a central motivator. It is not the only motivator. It depends on what aspect of my creative work I'm making a decision on. So I consider my nexus of things that I do for money to be creative or creative adjacent. There's just nothing I do that doesn't have a lot of my own heart and soul in it, and it's so everything I do is pretty creative, and I think that I am like you, and I would say like everybody that isn't rich, it's important to consider the money. Initially, I had to make a certain amount a month, and if I couldn't make it through the stuff I was doing that's in my creative adjacent work, which is editing and teaching, I would get on Craigslist and find a typing job I could do or something
Mm.
to make that amount of money. So it was definitely consideration every single month. I couldn't afford to go a month without making money.
Mhm.
Yes, I had a partner, yes, the partner was a primary breadwinner. However, I still had to make money. Vancouver's a very expensive city. You can't just have
Yeah.
one income unless that income is very high. So there was that. Now do I have let me put it this way. Although I needed to make money and I didn't have a choice about making money, I also like making money. I think making money can be creative. And I've always had a job since I was 11 years old. So I have never not been in a position of making money unless I deliberately took time off to write, which I used to do when I worked in the conference industry because I made a lot of money. And then I could
Mhm.
afford to take 2 weeks off and just go work on my book. I
Mhm.
never took long periods of time off. Didn't never took a summer off or anything like that. So, yes, is it central to my decision making? Yes, is it necessary? And yes, do I think it's creative? All of those things are a yes. Does it motivate me? If I have to choose between two things to put my time and attention into, and one of them is going to make me money and one of them isn't, I'll do both if I can because it's not the money that I'm interested in. It's the project I'm interested in. Like Gifted
Right.
Underachievers, we make zero money doing this and we have no
Yeah.
plan to monetize it. So it's for fun and that's fine. And it does it take a long time? Yeah, I spent quite a few hours this week on it and I'm okay with that. You know, when I'm doing the things that are less close to my heart, some of the stuff I do, I look at money first or second, you know. The opportunity and the money are equally aligned. So I did a recent proposal to work on a book, and I would not have proposed to work on that book if I had not wanted to raise my income for
Mhm.
2025. It would have been a last minute project that I liked it. It seemed like fun, but if I had really wanted to look after myself, I would not have bid on it because I need some time off, but the money was more important because I will really want to get back to my 2023 level of income.
Mm.
Um, and that's not to say I'm going to have the same money because inflation happened. So I'm okay with that. I accept it, but I'm still very much motivated by that dollar figure in my bank account.
Yeah, no, and that all makes sense. And boy, do I feel the needing to make up for a couple of bad years.
Yeah.
Because 2022 was where it started to, well, 2023 actually.
Hmm.
There was a big shift in how the kind of ghostwriting and developmental editing that I do, how that hiring works.
Hmm.
And, it's one of those things, as with happens in, I think, probably most creative endeavors, there's no big announcement that, hey, the industry's making a shift. Guess
Yeah.
what?
Hmm.
You have to adjust. You realize it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, where's the work? Why am I not getting the work? And, went through this whole huge thing. And so that was all about the money,
Hmm.
right? And I had to adjust my I guess my business model in a sense, and how I
Yeah.
approach marketing myself and who I reach out to and how I go about things. And and it worked. And so I'm having a much, much, much better year this year than I have in the past. And it's been easier and better and nicer and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And certainly part of that, a big reason why that happened, was the money went away and I had to bring the money back.
Yeah.
So it's a huge motivator. It was a
Yeah.
gigantic motivator.
Hmm.
And I also would say that you and I would put us in these similar mid category,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I would also put us as well above average in terms of the income that we make when I look around.
Wow. I
And I
feel
would,
bad for those other people then.
I know,
Yeah.
no, because at the same time, I would say that we are definitely in this zone of working class creatives,
Totally. Oh
where there
yeah.
is no luxury of thinking about, what, next year I'm going to just not do these things and I'm going to write the novel.
I don't think
It's,
that's
it
not even a middle class thing. I mean, that's you have inherited money or you have somebody supporting you thing. Like nobody can take a year off.
Yeah, well, that's, you've pushed through, you've found your way past the broken rungs of the ladder, you've pushed through, and you're now making enough money as a creative that you
Mm.
make those kinds of choices,
Oh, I
right?
see.
Again, I talk a lot about the Michael Palin journals that I've been reading, which I finally finished the last one, thank God.
Thank
But
Christ for that. I'm so
yeah,
tired of hearing about Michael Palin.
but
No, I'm joking.
anyway,
Sorry.
and really interesting to see somebody who broadly perceives himself as a creative, because he does the writing, he does the television presenting, the travel shows, the comedy, all these different things. And seeing the difference of somebody who has the capacity to make choice.
Hmm.
And to make a choice, yes, he considers, is this paid? Is it, am I going to maintain a certain amount of income and all that kind of stuff? But that's not the driving force. It's purely interest
Hmm. Hmm.
for where he's at. And for you and I, and kind of everybody else, we're in this zone where we can't miss a month of income, right?
Exactly. And I don't know that it's really that realistic to look at, okay, mid-level, I can't afford to miss a month of income. It just doesn't work that way. The expenses are rolling in every month. It's very hard to bankroll with creative work because it's a fluctuating commodity. Um, but the other part is Michael Palin is like 900 rungs up the ladder. Like, can we compare ourselves to successful high mid-level or low whatever up is above mid-level and have that as the benchmark, not somebody who is an iconic comedian that changed the history of television, but somebody a little more in our next five or
Yeah.
six steps up.
Yeah. Who else do we, sit with?
So we're talking about the fact that really we need to keep bringing in projects in order to work and that we make a lot of decisions about our day-to-day lives and projects in the workplace based on how short we are that month or how much money we have in the bank or whatever's going on. We kind of adjust what we will say yes to and what we'll say no to based on how flush we are, really. What I'm thinking is there's a point at which, we're sort of seeing ourselves sometimes as the recipient of work, right? The recipient of projects. And I think there's a point at which, if you want to move beyond mid level, you look at yourself as the initiator of projects and you
Mhm.
figure out how to raise money for those projects and you get going on those projects with a business plan and you make it work through initiative rather than through deciding on a menu of limited choices that are easy to get, that are presented to you. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I had this thought that, oh, we should have a grant experiment.
Oh, for fuck sake, but that's still you applying, that's still you qualifying. It's not you
Yeah.
initiating.
Oh, I know. And so then I would get into, I think that yes, so you're talking about instead of being somewhat passive, it's being much more active. And
What I'm saying is, yeah, well, so the passivity is not in being offered work because it takes a great deal of sort of visibility to get to the point where you get offered work. You
Mhm,
have to be pretty good at your job. You have to know people. You have to have repeat clients and word of mouth and all that stuff. So that's not really passive, but it is limiting your own opportunities to the ones that come at you or that you create without
mhm.
considering this is the creative project that I want to do. I need to be able to have money to do that. I guess I get what you're saying with the grants experiments. It's a way of getting money. It's not a very efficient way of getting money, but it is a way.
Mhm.
I'm now looking at more of a capitalistic viewpoint where, even if you had a project that could fund a different project, like if you actually started looking at things like a regular business looks at things, which is, yeah, we have a high markup on this. Like, say you're I don't know, hotel or whatever. You're selling
Mhm.
muffins for $6. They cost 75 cents to make. So you got a big margin on those. You can sell a lot of those. You're making more money per. And then you've got some things that are more labor intensive, but you can only charge so much for them. So it's a way of kind of looking at your own creative, what's the word, ecosystem and
Mhm.
looking at how some of this stuff can fund other stuff deliberately. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think so two things. One, I very intentionally changed how I'm doing what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
I think I haven't added it up and it's not the end of the year yet, but I may come close to even doubling what I made last year, right? So,
Fantastic.
so there's that part of that where I intentionally said I have to make a change. I did.
Yeah.
It's so far here I am. But I'm also hearing that, being more of an instigator to sort of say, here's the thing that I want to do next year. How am I going to make it happen? How am I going to fund it?
Yeah.
And, I jokingly said, oh, how about a grant experiment? Because
Yeah.
that was our purpose of the grant experiment was
Mhm.
let's find a way to come up with that money. And grants was our first expedition, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, and what I'm thinking about now as you're talking, is it about finding investors, coming up with capital to be able to back what you want to do? And it makes me think of Isaac, who we
Uh-huh.
interviewed, the actor producer.
Isaac Woofter.
And
Yeah.
he goes out, he comes up with his idea, his script, and then he has to go out and raise the money.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's an aspect of that where he's asking people to take a risk
Mhm.
that if the project doesn't make a bunch of money, they don't get paid back,
Yeah.
right? Investment. And so I'm wondering if that's maybe one way to take this from, be the instigator and what do you actually have to do? What does that look like? What are the specific, details to actually make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the movie industry there is because it's so collaborative, there are a lot of ways that somebody who funds a project can also get the benefits from the project. It's less clear in the writing industry how somebody funding my project can get money from it because books don't sell that much. There's very few books that sell a
Yeah.
lot of copies. So there's no built-in thing saying, oh, well, because you don't know if you're going to, win a prize or anything like that. Like Isaac was trading the fact that it's got film festival potential and that, if it wins, you'll get to walk the red carpet. That's what he was offering to his investors, among many other things. He was talking about maybe they could have a role in it. So there's opportunities in that industry that aren't available to the publishing or writing industry. And I think what I was thinking of was more of a self-contained thing, but I think also I tend to think quite self-contained. And by that I mean, why don't I do a new journal and then use all the money from that to fund a project that needs a bit of funding, because right now that just goes into general revenue. And then I'm trying to build up my 6 month, this is my draw for 6 months that I want to have in the bank. So in case I get sick or lose an arm, I can still at least
Right.
6 months to recover, and I'm nowhere near replacing that money that I had in there from 2023. So that's my focus. But now I'm thinking, what if I don't have that money just sitting there in case I need it? What if I use it to do something with? And this is money I've earned. This is not money that came to me from any other source. It came to me through one edit after another, one class after another that I teach and create. So I think maybe the initiative part, the instigatory part is if I were a visual artist, and let's say I'm Kath Monstream, I would do exactly what
Mhm.
she did. Make the greeting cards to fund the
Right.
studio and the large format paintings.
Right.
That seemed like a pretty good model. You're using the same talent, but you're making a viable product to fund the products that are a little less easy to sell, basically. You're making a very
Yeah. Or more time consuming to produce,
Yeah,
you know?
both of those.
Yeah.
More time consuming
But
to produce, and you need a specific buyer to pay several $100s for a painting or several thousand. I don't even know what she
yeah.
charges. Whereas you only need a whole bunch of buyers to pay $5 for a greeting card.
Yeah, no, I think that's, and it gets back to the minimum viable product that we've
Yeah,
talked about, that kind of thing. And I like that Kath as an example with the postcards. They were something that she could produce in high quality on her own
yeah,
in mass,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so it kind of makes me think about this notion of a virtuous feedback financing loop,
Holy moly, I like that.
right?
Tell me more.
And trying to figure out what that looks like. And it's going to be different depending on your creative domain, right? So we talked about Isaac Wolfter, and he writes a script or develops a treatment. I don't know if he does a treatment and then goes out and gets funding, then writes a script, and goes out and gets funding because that's how that model works, right?
Mhm.
And then Kath, who has a studio, supplies everything that she needs to do the big paintings that she can sell for, hundreds or thousands, is also the same tools and gear that she can produce these postcards,
Yeah, they're
right?
greeting cards, but yeah.
And then to continue the comparison, you have the pleasure journal, you have the courses that you teach, you have the book that you published, the tenants, and probably another product or two going.
I have a book on my job. It's called Fiction Editing: A Writer's Roadmap. I don't get any more
Writer's
money for the
roadmap.
tenants because that was traditionally published through a contest. So I don't see any more money than the initial money unless it sells a lot
Okay.
of copies. But yeah, I have this other book and I get money. I do get money
Yeah.
from those things. Yeah.
And you've done a really nice job with those things. I don't know how much money all of them combined brings in, but you're doing, really well and intentional about it. And it's interesting because when I started, again, with this starting as a writer and I need to make money, my postcard idea was short stories, and then I
Yeah.
would sell short stories to fund, other capacity. And then boy, did that not work.
Yeah. It's not
You know,
Scott Fitzgerald world anymore. I mean, he made
no,
grand a story back in the 20s and 30s, which was
yeah.
huge
Oh,
money.
yeah, and what was feeding that, idea was reading about famous authors who were working on their big books or big projects, and a little annoyed, but more than happy to write short stories that they could sell in their time era. So
Yeah.
60, 30, 60s for like $1,000.
Yeah, those days are over.
And those days are long gone. So, I still find myself trying to figure out how do I create that virtuous feedback financing loop
That's a good one.
for these products that allow me to be more of the instigator. It's art as motivation, as money as motivation, as art as motivation. It's like this cycle that you go through.
Mm.
And I don't think you can separate the need to have financial resources to be able to make art.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think it's one we've come at before from a number of angles, but I really like your virtuous feedback financing loop. Where's the virtuous come in? What does that refer to?
Well, there's a negative feedback loop and there's a virtuous feedback
Oh, I
loop.
see.
So
Oh,
in
I
the
see.
negative, yeah, obviously things get bad and continue to get worse because you're in that feedback loop. And so this is like, how do you get into a positive moving feedback loop?
Yeah, yeah. I think people have done it. I'm just wondering, actually, how many mid-level creatives have figured this out and have a sort of a steady source of income from some aspect of their creative work so that they can work on their more personal large projects without having to drop everything and take a contract that's creative adjacent. And I'm thinking now of our previous guest, Juliana Brazil, whose stuff is
Mm,
Instagram. Have you seen those Christmas cards? Holy
no, not yet.
smokes, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
I love them so much. One of them was a Christmas tree surrounded by a mouse, and instead of a star on the top, it had a piece of cheese. You know, I'm a cheese fanatic.
uh,
I just
Julia,
loved
if you're
it.
listening, we love you. You're brilliant.
They're
Uh,
so witty and just sweet and like they got kind of a I don't know what's the word like a bit of a punk edge, like there's the
yeah.
Christmas tree and it's got a wedge of cheese on top. It's just really it's
Yeah.
real they're really great. And I think if Juliana makes a killing out of those, more power to her, and
Oh, she deserves it.
yeah, I mean, don't we all, right? I
Yeah.
just, so that's what I would love to have. The thing about writing is because it's so much of it is free. It's all over I mean, before the internet writing, that's why these
Yeah.
guys could sell short stories for 3 grand back in the 1920s because, the Post came out once a month and they had some great stories in them by very high profile writers and everybody passed them around. Now there's writing everywhere, and I'm not complaining. I mean, I'm a big consumer of internet writing. I think it's great.
Mhm.
I'm glad to have it. I use libraries. I also buy books. I don't necessarily pay a lot for reading, but I do think it's just it's harder to come up with something
Yeah.
for writers than it might be for visual artists. And maybe I'm just being a whiny little writer. I don't know.
No, so this points to another segment that we could do on how to navigate disruptive technologies.
Yeah,
The internet killed magazines,
yeah,
and there used to be gobs and gobs and gobs and gobs of magazines, and they would publish individual short stories, but they also would serialize books.
yeah,
So not only could you publish a book, but then you could have a major magazine serialize it
yeah,
at the same time or even before you publish. I mean, there's just so many opportunities that were open that
yeah,
have now been closed. And so
yeah.
the internet has been a disruptive technology. And maybe here we are 30 years later.
Hmm.
If we
Hmm.
call 1995 as the beginning,
Yeah.
we're still trying to navigate that change as writers.
Yeah. And 30 years ago, I wasn't a writer. I mean, I wrote, I was definitely writing, but I had made my money in the conference industry. I didn't need
Mhm.
to sell anything, and that was a gift. That's how I wrote like a novel every 4 years. I just got up early and did it before work because I was trying to learn how to do it. I didn't think about making money at it. Now that I'm in the industry, I do think about making money all the time. I mean, when I have money, I am less pressured to take on more contract work.
Mhm.
And I think, is there a way for the writing part of the creative industry to make money off the way that a visual artist can? I think so. One interesting thing about Isaac Wooster on his website, he does book trailers.
Yeah.
for New York
Yeah.
Times bestsellers. I mean, that's a great use of his skills and talents to sort of his version of the greeting card, maybe, not exactly because it's not his book he's doing, but it's showcasing his abilities as a storyteller and a filmmaker. Is there something equivalent to that for writers that you can sell for money? Ghostwriting, I guess, but they're not short projects.
Writing greeting cards.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah. And that's another thing because AI will now write all their greeting cards.
Yeah. And I don't think that ever paid very well.
No,
Yeah.
copywriting, it paid well, but again, AI is disruptive to that.
Yeah. You can go through, marketing writing, you can write ad copy, those kinds of things. But again, that's a skill set. It's hard to get into.
Yeah.
There's a gatekeeper, there's
Yeah.
barrier to entry, whereas we're really looking for that thing where the only barrier to entry is your elbow grease.
Yeah.
And that's for writers, that's a tough one to find.
It's a
But
tough one.
but
Yeah.
I think it's a worthy endeavor. And I think your shift of this conversation, as annoying as it was, Pat, and coming after finding out our wealth has gone into crypto, for God's sake.
Sorry.
But nonetheless brilliant, not the crypto. But I think this is the question that writers need to address. How do we figure this one out?
It's a good question, I think. I mean, I'm just going by my own experience. And yes, many of the writers I work with, they are not relying on creative work for their money. So it's one of those fields where you can be a very accomplished writer and just you're retired or you have an income from another source and you're not rich. You just don't
Yeah.
need the money from writing. We're
Yeah.
in a position where we actually need the money from writing and we're constantly experimenting with ways to sort of create a baseline that means that you have a shitty year, you're not trying to make up for it for the next 3 years. You can kind of be a little bit more autonomous from the flow of contract work and you can make stuff you're proud of that's affordable for other people. So the thing about books is they take a long time to write, to do one at high
Mhm.
quality. Many writers are loath to self-publish. They still see it as a bit of a stigma. I don't feel that way about it. I
Yeah.
self-publish my nonfiction. I don't care because it's very niche, and that's to me is
Mhm.
the best way to get it out there and the best way for me to make any money off of it. And then I start thinking, oh, what about t-shirts? They have slogans on them, and then you're a fucking t-shirt person, or and I'm also thinking, well, bookmarks. I could do, but who buys bookmarks? You get them with
Nobody
the
buys
book,
books
right? Yeah.
because the
So
bookstores giving them away for free.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe what it looks like, not in its literal finished state, but
Mhm.
maybe what it looks like is something close to your pleasure journal, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the content creator of the pleasure journal is the purchaser of the pleasure journal
Yeah. Oh, it's
created.
got a lot of stuff in it, but it is a journal. It's a guided journal, that's all.
You're curating an experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
Yeah.
maybe that's what it looks like. There's no barrier to entry other than, again, the elbow grease, having an idea and getting started.
Yeah. The downside to journals is that unless you know a retailer and you want to deal directly with a printer, you cannot get them in bookstores like as a regular
Yeah.
writer in North America because Ingram Stark will not take low content material. They'll only take books.
Well, yeah, and that's why I mean, when it comes to fruition, it may not look anything like your journal does now,
Yeah.
but that may be the foot in the door to get to a better idea.
I think you're right. You know what? I think it's a solvable problem. When you look at that as sort of an exemplar of, where it could go, then it becomes more of a how
Mm,
because you already have the concept. Well, this basically it's self-publishing, isn't it?
yeah, and again, it comes down to you got to have an idea.
Got to have an idea and you got to be able to bet on yourself,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is,
which we do in spades every single day that we get up.
yeah,
Every creative does.
it's
Uh,
true. And if you're not fundraising from other people, so Isaac Wifter was talking about when sorry, we keep referencing Isaac, but he
yeah,
was just a recent guest. Anyway, you'll see his segment when it airs, and it's well worth a listen. But and his wisdom was in the idea that yes, you can bet on yourself. And if you are trying to fundraise, you are asking other people to bet on you as well. It could be an interesting project, but they need to know you can carry it through. And so I think
Mhm.
we lack, as a filmmaker, that's already part of the system. As you said, we don't have a system set in place, but this is our opportunity to think about how writers could have a system to fund their
Well,
lives. Hmm?
so let me ask you this. So I know we're at the end of our time here.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can ignore this in this segment, which is Kickstarter and these other fundraising on platforms.
Yeah.
To me, it would depend on the project, but the first group that you go to are people you know,
Yeah.
which means I'm going to Facebook friends to, yada, 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 saying, can you give me some money, please? And
Yeah.
that feels very uncomfortable. Whereas it feels much more comfortable if, so and so gets a bad cancer diagnosis and needs to fundraise. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it feels uneasy to me. But it's out there. It exists. People are doing it. Some people are really, really, really succeeding with it.
Yeah.
And curious about your thoughts.
Well, I think I come from a similar place to you. I'm not just uncomfortable, I eschew it. I just think if you're running a business, run the damn business. Why would you be begging for money from other people? What are you giving them? So it's kind of like, does somebody using the Kickstarter, I actually saw this, oh, I don't know, a few years ago. Somebody had a Kickstarter so that they could go on their honeymoon. And I'm like, if you don't have the money to go on a honeymoon, that's your problem. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't have the money to go on a honeymoon and mine was delayed for 2 years because we didn't have the money, and I'm okay with that, right? But,
Hey, I am starting a Kickstarter tomorrow. This has inspired me because I want to purchase a Lancia Belma Eclipse.
what is that?
It's about a $500,000 sports car from the 1930s.
Yeah, there you go. Good luck with that.
So, why not?
Yeah, why not? So there's that kind of Kickstarter, which I honestly have absolutely no interest in supporting, and I would never I think I run a business. I mean, this is a business. It's not a charity. I don't need somebody's money. If somebody came to me and said, I'll give you X thousand dollars to, have, I don't know, a percentage of this book or 100 free copies of this book or whatever, I would consider it. But otherwise, no, I'm not going to go outside the business for money. The business has to be
Mhm.
able to support itself. Otherwise,
Right,
it's not a business.
right.
And I'm hardcore about that. I mean, there's absolutely no reason for me to donate to anybody's fucking honeymoon, and there's no reason for anybody to donate to my fucking business.
And if it's your honeymoon that Pat didn't fund, fuck you.
Nobody's listening. Hey, but the other thing is, and I do want to make this clear, I am not talking about raising funds to make a film. I'm not talking about that. Say I had a really good reason that I needed a particular studio or something expensive to do my shit in. If I had a good enough reason, maybe I'd do a Kickstarter. I still don't think so, but maybe.
Yeah, a Kickstarter for somebody in need, absolutely 100%.
Yeah, and I'm just realizing that I didn't have the terminology a minute ago, but it's the movie industry and the theater has always had producers. They've
Mhm.
always had people who put the money up because these are expensive things to make, and a play is expensive to put on. The writing industry does not work that way. That's just the
Yeah.
difference.
When you look at, publishers right now are making huge profits, more
Yeah,
than they have in a long time.
yeah,
But that's because they're using a long tail, which is they're pushing out a gobsmacking amount of books. They have the tentpole authors who are sustaining a lot of it.
yeah.
But we as individual authors just that's not realistic. So
Exactly. Yeah, and the publishing industry is based on actual product, whereas the film and theater industry are based on the idea, the plan, the
mm,
system, the cast who's doing it. It's based on an intangible that's going to happen. You get the funds before you make the thing, or as Isaac said, he raised half the funds and then he can get the other half. For us, it doesn't operate that way. Publishers pay you only if you have a finished product, unless you get an advance for a nonfiction book. But other than that, most of the time it has to be done. And so you can't, there's no producers involved, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe publishing, we need producers. But then they'd be idiots to get into that one.
Right? I mean, because how can you look at one writer and go, yeah, they're going to finish their book and they're going to get it sold and they're going to make a big bunch
and
of
it's going to make 50 million in its first weekend.
Yeah, I'm gonna make my money back on that writer. Oh, I'm not gonna make my money back on that writer. There's no way they can tell. They can't tell.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of money that I can either spend on the next Marvel movie that I know is guaranteed to make 60 million, or I've got this guy, James Buchanan, sitting in the back of his house in Exeter, New Hampshire.
Says he could write a good book if he only had the fucking time.
If he only had the money. Yeah, let me think about that one for a while.
Yeah, we got to be our own producers. That's all it is.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so we got to be our own producers of our own virtuous feedback financing loops.
Namaste. Thanks so much for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Hope you have a great creative week.